The following story is one lady's encounter with a man she met as Clinton, but later confessed to be Michael. Clinton and I met on a dating app for seniors. It was aimed at people 55 plus who want to find a real connection. I joined the free weekend site on the long weekend. Christmas was a time when it happened. I was off from work for 4 days as I had taken a personal day to match with our 3 day weekend. My job tends to burn me out, and this was some needed home time where I wasn't so stressed. I thought maybe I would find someone online to chat with and possibly make a connection with. I've been divorced going on 14 years now and haven't really dated other than an occasional dinner date or a one time date at the movies with someone, but nothing worth remembering. I live in Upper Michigan, and the winters can get very long, and meeting someone is nearly impossible in my small town because you already know them from before. When I joined the site, I admit I used a photo of myself from 15 years prior. I'm 60, and I guess I didn't feel beautiful enough to put a current picture up, and honestly, at the time, I doubted I would meet anyone in person. I kind of joined this site for fun. I didn't realize that I had my settings set to the global app, so there was no limit on where I could meet someone where they were from. Clinton came across my suggested matches because of my hobbies of swimming, dancing, and travel matched with his. Clinton sent me a message as I was reading his profile. I guess the site notifies you when someone views your profile. He started to message me telling me he found my profile interesting and smart. He asked if we could chat for a bit, and I told him sure. We were limited, though, to 5 messages each on the bronze level of the app. Clinton said he too was on the bronze level, which was the free weekend level. The first 5 messages from him, he told me he was 61, originally from Spain but lived in Texas and was a widow. His wife had died 10 years prior and he had a 24-year-old daughter. The final message he sent asked if we could exchange email addresses to communicate. So I, of course, traded emails with him as our last message. After 5 messages, the app makes you either sign up for the silver, gold, or platinum. Otherwise, you can only like each other's photos going forward. Clinton liked all of my pictures, which, to be fair, I had 4 that I'd uploaded, and by this time, all these photos were old pictures of me. Clinton emailed me right away, sending me several photos of himself and telling me he was the director of operations for an oil pipeline company and that he often worked on the Gulf Coast and sometimes overseas in Norway and Ireland and the North Sea. He said his daughter was in the UK law school, finishing her final year to become a lawyer, and he was so proud of her. I asked Clinton a little bit more about himself, and then he asked about my divorce and what was going on with me. Well, I shared with him that I had divorced years ago. I had no kids of my own, but my ex husband had a young son when we first met, so he had become my stepson, and he's as close to a real son, only we're not bound by blood. He checks on me and lives and works in the same area, so I really have watched him grow into a nice young man. I told Clinton this, and he asked me if I had dated many men online, and I told him no. I did go on a few dates with some local guys, nothing serious, pizza and conversation. Clinton told me he has not dated in some time, especially since his wife had passed away. He was afraid to love again because losing her took so much from him that any few dates he was on, it wasn't interesting. He told me that he travels a lot for work and really doesn't have time to date, but as he gets older and closer to retirement, he would like to find someone to settle down with and that has the perfect retirement life together. He told me he stays active and goes swimming almost every day when he's not working offshore. He told me he goes offshore sometimes 2 to 3 weeks at a time to work on pipeline projects, but most of his work is done from his office in Houston. We had basic conversations about work and lives at home, basic things like that. Clinton would always send me an email every single day, just thinking of me or wishing me a good day, and he would send me videos and pictures of his office, and sometimes when he went on the rig, he sent photos saying he was doing safety inspections. We finally, after about 3 weeks of emailing back and forth, decided to exchange phone numbers, and he said we need to add each other on an app called WeChat. I had never used it before, but Clinton said it's best to keep in touch that way so we can voice message there and talk anytime. I downloaded the app, and Clinton called me that night. We ended up talking for several hours about life, work, everything. He told me he grew up in Spain, but his mother was originally from Italy, and his father was born in Greece. So he had a mixed accent as he had went to school in Switzerland. I'd never heard of his accent before. It was very different. It was new to me, but I really enjoyed our chats. Clinton told me he was leaving for 2 weeks to the North Sea, and he sent me some links to vessels in the North Sea, some videos showing how rough the waters are. It looked intimidating and dangerous. He told me he had to check on a project going on there and that he was doing a safety inspection, and when he returned, he would take a month off work and he wanted us to meet. I told him, well, we can see, as I was nervous. I never thought that this friendship would blossom into a relationship online and then to meeting, and the photos I sent him weren't exactly up to date. I wanted to tell him the truth, but I didn't at the time. And it's funny because the 4 days that I had taken off work when I first met Clinton, we emailed continuously for those days. And going forward from that time on, when work stressed me out, Clinton made things better. But a big part of me thought he wouldn't want to be with me if he's seen me as I am now, older and a lot heavier in my photos. In fact, Clinton asked me for more photos during our chats, and I ended up sending him some more older photos of me from 15 and even 18 years ago at work, parties, and get togethers. I was younger and 80 to 100 pounds thinner. I didn't know what I was thinking, but I did this, and I continued to lie to him about my photos, sending him old pictures. Clinton sent me photos as well and said they were taken from his desk, from the oil rig inspection sites, and I really felt guilty and bad for sending old photos of myself, and I just couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. We would often talk late at night. He asked if we could become boyfriend and girlfriend and to date exclusively online until we could meet. I told him yes, and I admit I was falling for this man and his attention, his kindness. He gave a lot to me. He said he never would cheat and he was a one-woman man. I believed him. My ex-husband cheated on me several times, even times he thought I didn't know about. I was hesitant because of my lies about my photos, but I wanted to see if Clinton really wanted this. And in my head, I thought if he fell for me, he'd forgive me for the little lie about my photos. He left for the North Sea, and I was worried. He told me that the connection there is very poor and he would be in touch when he could. He wanted to video chat, but I told him no. I would rather just meet in person. I was scared to video chat because I don't look like my photo. It was a couple days later when Clinton voice called me. He said he was on the ship, and he even sent me a short video of the waves and him talking on the video, so I had no doubt that it wasn't him and he was there. He was being truthful. He told me the safety inspection would be tomorrow morning early, and we voice chatted a bit, but then the call dropped. Clinton messaged me telling me his phone was low on data, and he forgot to buy a card to load it, and now he's stuck in the sea. He asked me if I could buy him a $100 Apple card so that he could keep his phone data going. He said he would give me the money back in a couple of weeks when we meet. I told him, sure, I can do that for you, and he sent me a picture of what the card looked like, and he said $100 will keep him going for a couple of days. I thought to myself, a few days? Clinton said because the roaming charges, it deducts the card faster, and he could maybe talk with me a few minutes a day, unless I got a more expensive card for him. I really enjoyed talking to him, so I ended up buying him a $500 Apple card. I surprised him, and he was so thankful. He had messaged me and asked for the code on the back of the card and said that he'd loaded up the card. We talked that evening for over an hour, and without realizing it, he said the data was spent, that he had lost track of time talking so deeply into our conversations. We talked for so long he didn't realize that his card ran low. And I felt so bad, as he said he was going to try and call his daughter to check with her in the UK, but now he couldn't. He'd actually planned on meeting her, flying home to Texas, but first London, where she was schooling, but now he can't make plans. I bid good night to him and went to bed feeling guilty. He told me he had loved me before we hung up, and the next day I awoke to a message from him asking if I could buy a $100 Apple Card so that he could call his daughter, and call me, and call to arrange his flight for next week to London. That was really a lot of money for me at this point, but I felt like it was my fault. So that afternoon after work, I bought a $500 Apple Card. Clinton said he was falling so madly in love with me. I was with him too. And we started to sing songs together, and he would serenade me before bed every night. The next day, I was off from work, and I remember it being a Saturday morning, and Clinton called me. He also had texted me a video saying the weather was so dangerous and that the ship nearly overturned. They had to stay in their cabins and be seatbelted into special chairs. He said he was scared, and I realized how much he really loved me, and he asked me if I would fly to Houston to meet him when he returned from London after seeing his daughter, and that we could meet, and he'd even take me to the coast for romantic dinners and romantic getaways, and then show me his beautiful home in Houston. This was all going so fast, and while I wanted to, I knew my photos were not up to date, and if he saw me, what if he didn't like what he saw? I just lied. I told him I had to work, and I couldn't take off work. And while I had tons of PTO I could take off, I felt that I had to confess to him soon. Clinton, a few days later, was back on shore in Ireland. He was due to fly to London to spend 2 days with his daughter and then fly home to Texas. He again asked me to meet him, and I told him I can't. He then asked if he could fly to my city and meet me even for a few days. He was really pushing to meet. I felt sick in my stomach as I knew I wasn't honest with my looks. I told Clinton I would think it over and to enjoy the time with his daughter. He was to fly into London and then he would message me. Well, I didn't hear from him. And it was about 3 days later when he finally did message. I was worried sick and I didn't know if his flights were delayed or something happened to him. Clinton said he needed help. He was being detained by airport security. He said that he had been gifted a watch from the ship captain on the rig for helping during the storm on the sea. He told me he had helped to secure the vessel and make sure everyone was seatbelted in, and the captain gave him a very expensive watch as a thank you token. And when he went through airport security in London, he was detained because the watch had been reported stolen in Ireland, and when he went through security, he did not declare the watch as it was valued at $100,000, and you have to declare anything over $10,000. He said airport security was holding him in a holding cell until they could sort this out, that he's innocent, but that he was given the watch by the now captain who is missing, and he doesn't know the captain's last name for the police to verify him. He was crying on the phone and said that the UK fraud department is demanding answers or they'll put him in jail and charge him with international watch theft. I told Clinton to call his boss for the company he works for. They'll have the captain's number and full name and information. He said he couldn't, though. They only allowed him to make one call, and it was to me, and that his phone was out of minutes again, and he needed a $100 Apple Card to load it. He begged me to help, so I bought the card, gave him the numbers. He then told me he was going to call his company. Well, it was about an hour later when I received a phone call from a number I did not know. It had the country code of the UK. A man named Mr. Roth called and told me he was the lead inspector for the fraud at the International Airport Terminal, and that Clinton had went through, and that Clinton was being held for holding a cell, and that they were unable to locate the ship captain, but he was confiscated Clinton's phone to look for clues in his international watch investigation. And he found my number in Clinton's phone and asked me if I was involved in the theft, and I became angry, telling him absolutely not. I told Mr. Roth that I met Clinton and know that Clinton is innocent. This is all just a misunderstanding. He's a good man. Mr. Ross said that he has reasons to believe the ship captain used Clinton as a mule to transport the stolen watch, and I could easily get Clinton out of this mess with a bribe. This was all so crazy, and Mr. Roth told me if I didn't help Clinton that he would face 20 years or more in prison for international smuggling of a stolen watch. Mr. Roth told me if I send a bank transfer of 2,000 US dollars, he would let Clinton fly home on the next available flight. He gave me the name of a private agent who will accept the money so that the police captain doesn't know about the bribe, and he will see that Clinton gets on the very next flight. He wanted the money sent to a man in London at Barclays Bank. Well, I didn't know what to do. I asked him if I could talk to Clinton, and he said yes, but it was a time to call. Shortly after my phone rang and Clinton was on his phone, he called me begging to send the money so we can get him home and he'll pay me back triple when he gets back to the States on U.S. soil. He didn't want to go to prison as an innocent man and never see his daughter again. I told Clinton I would do what I can, and I ended up telling him to have Mr. Roth call me. And sure enough, Mr. Roth called me and advised me of what my decision was. I told him I would send the money, but it would take a day or two. Mr. Roth gave me 24 hours and said he would be off work after tomorrow and he needed the money transfer right away to get Clinton out of the country. I had to pull money from my savings. I had put all of my overtime pay into savings account, and I took the money and wired it through my savings to my checking, then onto this Barclays bank account that I was given. I texted Clinton a photo of the transfer, and right after that, I got a phone call from Mr. Roth to let me know that Clinton would be on the next flight home. I got a text then from Clinton showing me a picture taken from an airport lounge, and a screenshot of a flight leaving London to New York to Houston. He said he would be in touch when he got home, and it would be a very long flight with lots of delays, and he said he was not sure if his phone would have enough minutes. By this time, I was worried sick and asked him why his phone is not working again. He said he used all the data and thought the guards that were holding him might have taken his phone and used up all his minutes. He asked me for a $100 Apple card, and I bought it for him, gave him the code quickly, and he said he would be in touch. Well, that was the last I heard from Clinton in over a week. I tried calling Mr. Roth. No one answered. The number said it was no longer in a service area, whatever that meant. I sent text after text, call after call, email after email, very long emails, at least telling Clinton to say goodbye. I was a total wreck, felt helpless, and wondered if he was in jail or what had happened. Finally, though, after 2 agonizing weeks, I received an email from Clinton telling me he was sorry and that he had read my emails and I don't deserve to be in such emotional pain. He then told me that he has to tell me the truth. As I read his email, he stated he was not Clinton, that his real name is Michael and he's 34 years old and lives in Abuja, Nigeria. That he only signed up on an online profile because he needed to feed himself and his sick mother and siblings. That he had never meant to lie to me, and along the way he fell in love with me and didn't know how to tell me the truth. He then sent me photos of himself saying he's single, 34 years old, age is just a number, and he really thought my pictures were beautiful, and he never meant to hurt my feelings. That he needed the money to pay for his mother's medicine and to feed his brothers and sisters. That he has siblings that are college graduates going through college, there's no jobs, and they don't know what to do. I ended up crying after reading this, looking at pictures of this man and thinking, how brave of him to be honest. He had soulful eyes, but I was still shocked. In turn, though, I decided to confess to him that I was really using old photos of myself and decided to send him photos of what I currently look like, weight gain, age, and all. And I felt scammed. I felt duped, but I also duped him. Clinton, or should I say Michael, told me he thought I was beautiful and asked if he could call me. I told him yes. He then texted me some more photos of himself, and he told me he was totally in love with me and didn't care if I was overweight or older, that I'm his queen, and he never expected to fall so madly in love with me. He asked if I would continue our relationship and getting to know himself as Michael. I told him I'd have to think this over. He was a lot younger. I asked him if he's really single or doesn't he have a girlfriend or a wife? He told me no, he's single. He takes care of his sickly mother. His father had already passed, and he has younger siblings, brothers and sisters, that are still living at home. One is about to graduate college, and one is attending college, and he works sometimes for little pay to keep the family going. We started to text again. I told him we can be friends and I can consider a relationship, but it's a lot to absorb. He asked me if it's because he's a Nigerian man, and I told him no. It's because you're younger. You're in another country. There's so much to unpack. We started to text and voice call. He would talk to me on the phone and he would cry to me. I asked him what he did with my money. Why did you go to someone in London to have me send money to that person? He then told me that was his older brother who lives in London and he has a bank account. So he was able to transfer the money from me to him to Nigeria. And he said he sold the Apple cards as he doesn't have an iPhone, he's too poor. That he has an old Android phone with a cracked screen, but he was able to sell the cards for food. He told me his college friend told him about romance scamming, and he decided that since he had fallen in love with me, he wanted to stop doing this and stop living that kind of lifestyle. I asked him how many women he's scammed, and he told me none. He said when he met me, I changed his heart. He begged me to love him and to try this relationship. He even said he could apply for a visa and come and visit me to prove that he loves me. We started this unconventional relationship. He started talking to me, calling me daily like Clinton did, but as himself, as Michael. He sent me tons of photos, and he was a really good looking man. He promised me he wasn't scamming and he would never do it again. He wanted to meet me, and he sent me tons of loving messages, songs, and would sing to me every night, just like Clinton. But it was Michael. We started this online dating, and honestly, it felt a bit weird at first, but then as time went on, it was natural. He showed me photos of his home, his siblings, and his mother, who honestly was only a few years older than me. He told me his whole family, and he said he told his whole family about me, and he invited me to Nigeria. I told him no, I don't feel safe traveling that far. Maybe he can come here. Michael told me about the visa process, and it would cost him $500 for the application. He told me he would try to save the money, and maybe in a few years he'd have enough money saved to apply for the visa. Well, I didn't want to wait. I ended up sending him directly, through a transfer service, the money for the visa. He showed me a photo of the application and a photo of the visa processing office, as well as a photo of his passport. This was happening, and we continued this online relationship. I would often send him money for food, to pay for his family's rent. I actually took up a second job for a while to help him out. Michael said he would work at a scrap metal processing yard, but it only paid a few dollars a week, and it was very hard labor for the money. I tried several times to video chat with him, but he said he was too shy, that he felt I wouldn't want him, and that he had lied as Clinton, and he was still unsure. I told him none of that mattered, and he wants to meet for the first time in person, not on a video call. So we continued our online relationship, and we actually started really connecting. We talked as if we were a real couple. We did everything a couple does, but on the phone. I even sent him a few videos of myself in adult situations to spice up the relationship, and he did the same, and I was preparing myself to meet this man. He said the visa processing office was about to approve his visa, but as a Nigerian, he needed to show 5,000 US dollars in his bank account before they would approve the visa. He called me one night crying, saying we can't be together, that he prayed for us to be together. He again asked me to come to Nigeria, and honestly, I never traveled that far out of the country, and it just felt unsafe to me. I'd only been to Canada. I ended up asking my stepson and sharing with him that I had met someone online, but that they lived in another country, and if I go visit them, would you come with me? We could plan it, and I would buy his ticket as well. My stepson was shocked, supportive though. His first reply was, okay, where are we going? The UK? Canada? I told him, no, we're going to Nigeria. My stepson sighed and let out this loudest noise as if he was exhausted from my answer. He wanted the whole story, so I told him. He was furious and asked me what I had done. That if he lied to me as a scammer, he's lying now. My stepson and I ended up having a huge argument and told me that I was being played and I was losing my mind, and if I'd consider traveling to Nigeria to meet a man who lied to me in the first place, he wants no part of it. We stopped talking during this, and Michael felt bad about the argument that I told him we had. And he said, well, maybe we should just break up. But I was so angry that my stepson wouldn't be supportive of my relationship to Michael that we're going to make this work. I love you. I ended up sending the $5,000 to his personal Nigerian bank account so he could show the visa processing people that he had the means and the funds to visit. A few days later, he showed me an approval letter and we could finally meet. He said that his uncle has a friend who works for a major airline in Nigeria, and he could book the flight from Lagos to Chicago. He would take a bus from Abuja to Lagos, and I would have to drive from Michigan to Chicago to pick him up at the international airport, but that the flight would only be $1,200 US, and most flights over here are $2,000 from Nigeria, and several stops. Michael told me if I could wire the money, he would have his uncle book the flight. So I did just that. I wired the money, and it was wired into Michael's bank account. I also gave him an extra $1,000 for the cost of a taxi, traveling, and spending money, and to show he has money in his wallet when he goes through customs. He had his passport and his visa, and in my head I thought, I'll show my stepson Michael's not fake. We'll be together, and then he can eat his words. I wired all that money. In total, $5,000 for the visa, $1,200 for the flight, $1,000 for him to have pocket and travel taxi money, and then the $500 Razor card that he had asked me for, because he said that customs will ask if he has a credit card with money on it, so that would be great. Well, I did that, and I couldn't wait for us to be together. I was to pick him up at the airport on that Friday. He even showed me the flight itinerary, his passport, everything. 2 nights before he was set to leave, I called my stepson to tell him what was going on. I called him as more of an in-your-face call, but I wanted to hear my stepson say he was wrong and that maybe Michael was real and he would meet with us when we're in Chicago. We could all go together. Well, my stepson didn't believe me. So I showed him the flight itinerary and texted him a couple of photos of Michael. Well, it wasn't too long after that my stepson was at my house. I expected to open the door and hear his apology, but instead he threw a printed search result at me that showed the photos of Michael were stolen from a Nigerian actor named Ramsey, who is apparently a famous Nigerian version of a soap opera actor, and that the flight itinerary doesn't exist. It's fake. Nothing is on record with that airline, let alone any airline that Michael was on. He told me I was being lied to and scammed. How much money did you send him? My stepson asked. My heart dropped. I hit the call button and tried to call Michael. He picked up and called me baby. I confronted him about the photos and the flight information. He went silent and hung up and blocked me. I was in shock, my head spinning, my heart dropped, and my stepson was angry and tried to call Michael's number from his phone. By this time, Michael had given me his real Nigerian number. He answered. My stepson yelled at him, and Michael hung up and blocked him as well because when we tried to call it back, it would either ring a ton of times or ring twice and the call would end. My stepson encouraged me to file a police report, which I did, and the police said there's nothing that can be done. I willingly sent the money, and the bank cannot get the money back either. I had a total breakdown. I was so angry I nearly flew to Nigeria myself to find this guy. Then my stepson pointed out that the visa was fake, and the copy of the passport was fake, and the photo on the passport was the Nigerian actor named Ramsey. It was all fake except for the bank information. So my stepson went onto social media to look up this guy's name and found him on FB. His profile had photos of him, and interestingly enough, we knew it was him because the same photo of the watch that Clinton said that had been confiscated in London was on this guy's photo album, along with real pictures of himself, his wife, and his children. He had a nice car, a nice home, and was far from a starving man taking care of his siblings or his sick mother. The siblings he told me about were the same number of children he had. So you can imagine how I felt. I was giving money to a married man with a wife and kids, thinking I was helping a single guy with a sick mother and his brothers and sisters. I messaged his real profile and told him what I thought of him. And he ended up telling me that I was an old fool and blocked me. My stepson did the same and made threats to him, and he made threats to my stepson before blocking him. I never felt so tiny and so unwanted in my life. Since that incident, I've been flooded with friend requests on social media, fakes, oil rig workers, young students from Nigeria. You name it, I've gotten messages and straight up requests for money. I deleted the dating app, closed my social media for a while, and went back to work. I apologized to my stepson and carried on with my life alone. I've learned a very hard lesson that romance scammers' confessions just open the door for them to lie even more and get more money. Thank you for letting me share my story. I'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. Sadly, this happens often. Romance scammers will use fake profiles, try to get some money from you, and then they turn around and confess and continue to lie. A lot of these romance scammers are often married happily with children. If you'd like to share your story, whether you lost money or not, you can find me scammingscammers@gmail.com. Just drop me any screenshots, write me your story, and I'm happy to narrate it into a video. Until next time, take care and stay safe.